from the station working for you. This is WRTV News at 5:30, streaming now.
Now at 5:30, stolen vehicle. A family found their stolen van but are still frustrated by what happened. Next, how you can help. Millions of dollars in unspent money from the CARES Act. WRTV Investigates has been asking questions. Today, the state explains how it plans to use that money. Chris.
Topping our lineup today, we're talking to an expert on caregiving about simple, creative ways that you can still make the holidays feel special if you are separated from your loved ones, and an important reminder about trying to do it all. And many people have never faced the hardships they are right now. The 3 programs that you can apply for that you may not be taking advantage of. And you know losing your smell is one symptom of COVID. But we will show you the Scratch and Sniff app that could tell you that you have the virus before you can get a regular test.
First at 5:30, an Indianapolis family is frustrated tonight and looking for answers after the people who stole their car got away. And it was all captured on camera. And tonight, IMPD is asking for your help identifying those responsible. WRTV's Megan Sanctorum has more.
This gas station at 38th and Illinois is where that family found their stolen minivan. It's also the place where they watched the people who were inside of it run away. This is video from Luke Langrebe.
Don't let him run.
Taken from his cell phone right after he tracked down his stolen car and called IMPD.
The adrenaline started pumping and just didn't really know what to think at that point. We had found our van.
He says his shock continued as he and the officer on scene watched those who were inside the car get away.
Kids jumped out of the side of the van and ran in front of the store. So he kept his weapon holstered, which I wholeheartedly agree with. And then they just kind of meandered out of the way.
So we asked IMPD how a situation like this should be handled. They said victim and officer safety is the #1 priority. And Langrebe did the right thing by keeping his distance and calling police. They say the officer in this video called for backup, and they tried to find the 2 adults and 3 young people who were in the car, but were not able to. No K9, SWAT, or drone was used because this is not a felony.
Very, very frustrating. Just kind of the lack of concern.
Langrebe says his car was stolen from this parking garage on South Meridian while he was at work late last month. He says he called to activate the built-in GPS several days later, and that's how he was able to find it. He and his family have the car back now, but they lost everything that was inside of it, and it's still in the shop with major damage.
Terrifying, really, just to know that that's our future and that the kids are getting taught that this is okay and that it's a fun game, but
they'll do it again.
They'll just they'll keep doing it again, and eventually somebody will get hurt.
He and his wife hope nobody else has to go through the same thing.
The fact that there is just no accountability that stem from this, I mean, these kids are probably out stealing another car in a parking garage downtown, at some point.
Working for you, Megan Sanctorum, WRTV.
And police are asking anyone with information about this case or the people in the video to call IMPD North District detectives at 317-327-6100. Kyle.
Well, you weren't the only one tracking through that snow this morning. Here you can see some deer were out there in Bargersville and making their way through some of that light snow there that added up to about 1 to 2 inches in much of central Indiana. We had some spots that got a little more than that of that wet snow that really started to cling to those tree branches. Well, we have been waiting and waiting and waiting for measurable snow. It's been 277 days since our last measurable snow here in central Indiana. We picked up 1.7 officially in Indianapolis today. A little over an inch of snow that fell on March 14th, so way back when, several months ago. We still have some of those snow showers over the eastern portion of the state here. Not really expecting much in the way of additional accumulation, but those temperatures are starting to slide back below the freezing mark once again. So watch out for some isolated slick spots. 30 degrees for you right now in Martinsville and Indianapolis, upper 20s in Greenfield and Connorsville at 32 degrees. Our temperatures this evening will hold pretty steady. They're right around 30 degrees with some flurries, isolated snow showers, and those wind chills in the 20s as we've got a northwest wind around 5 to 10 miles per hour. But another December thaw is on the way. We'll detail that in just a bit. Chris.
We start the news feed with Secretary of State Mike Pompeo in quarantine. The State Department says that he came into contact with someone who did test positive for COVID-19, but he has tested negative. Meantime, the State Department will be getting a limited number of the COVID-19 vaccine this week. says it plans to give them to frontline medical workers and American personnel in Afghanistan, Iraq, and Somalia. Well, there is a surplus of the monoclonal antibody treatments that can be used for people with COVID-19. Health and Human Services Secretary is saying that patients are waiting until they're at the hospital to be treated and that it could be too late by then. He's urging doctors to prescribe these treatments earlier for anyone over 65 or at risk of serious complications. And while so much attention is on vaccines, bringing the pandemic to an end, that is going to take some time. Meanwhile, at-home testing could play a valuable role. The FDA has just approved its first COVID-19 test that you can do at home without a prescription. And it also provides results right away without having to mail anything in. It's made by an Australian company. The cost is an improvement. It's $30. Limited supply will make its way into U.S. stores soon, with production ramping up next year.
It doesn't really get us to a place where at-home testing would really change the course of the pandemic.
Infectious disease experts have long said that we need a national testing strategy, and at-home testing is the same. Now, Dr. Shira Doron says in order to turn the tide, you would want people to be able to test at home daily or at least several times a week, so that tests would need to be even cheaper. There also needs to be an education component with following up with a PCR test if that at-home test result is positive. She's less worried about false negatives than false positives because of what she's seen play out so far.
In the hospital setting with around false positives is people being put in a room together. In college settings, people being put in a room together.
Now, she is more optimistic about the vaccine. She was actually one of the first at Tufts Medical Center to get the Pfizer COVID vaccine yesterday.
I'll just take the fact that I'm not going to use up an ICU bed. That in and of itself, to me, is huge.
So what was it like to get the COVID-19 vaccine? Well, she says that she does have a little bit of pain in her arm, and she can feel it working to the point that the second dose that you'll need to get, well, it may keep her at home for a day or so. All right, we do have more to get to in our lineup today. We are talking to an expert on caregiving about ways you can still make the holidays feel special if you are separated from your loved ones.
The state announced today it does plan to allocate the more than $650 million in CARES Act dollars it received from the federal government. As part of the rebound, WRTV Investigates has been asking questions about how the state's spending more than $2.4 billion it received through the Coronavirus Relief Fund. The governor says Indiana will allocate the dollars by the deadline and will not send money back to the federal government. The state's director for the Office of Management and Budget says they are looking at how they can help schools, but they will commit $400 million to the Unemployment Insurance Trust Fund.
That trust fund, which pays out unemployment insurance, has been drawn on to the tune of $1.4 billion. And in fact, the state of Indiana is borrowing from the federal government. And so we believe it is prudent to make a deposit to avoid that borrowing.
State lawmakers like Representative Greg Porter have urged the state to spend the millions in CARES Act money on things like rental assistance for families in need. Porter says CARES Act funds need to be allocated by December 30th. State leaders announced today they are waiting to find out whether the state will receive additional federal assistance or a deadline extension.
There is a lot of excitement about the joy the holidays can bring, especially this year. But at the same time, many families, especially those with fragile loved ones, may be experiencing stress and sadness.
It's the first time in my life that I have not been with any of my family members. And so that's really difficult and tricky for us.
AARP's caregiving expert isn't alone. More than 3/4 of caregivers are making alternative plans this holiday season because of the pandemic. Amy Goyer says to avoid all or nothing thinking, focus on traditions that are most important to your loved one.
For one family member, the decorations are the most important part. Another one, it's the family movie night. It might be that the meals are the most important thing. The music, the religious services. Find out what's most important and try to prioritize ways that you can adapt.
Now, for loved ones outside the home, increase how often you talk to them. Decorate outside their window or mail them decorations. Do holiday traditions like reading a story, watching a movie, or enjoying some Christmas morning coffee over video.
I know one caregiver who got a bunch of greeting cards and she addressed them all from different people and gave them to the facility, and they're giving them to her brother who lives in a memory care facility. Every day he gets a card, and that makes him feel like, oh, this is a cue. This is the holiday season, and somebody cares about me.
Caregivers also need to pay attention to themselves. Well over half are already experiencing negative impacts on their mental health.
Remember to give to yourself, and that's a good thing to do. In fact, it's a required. It's not optional, because that's how we continue to have within what we need to give to others.
Such an important message to remember there. Now, ahead in our lineup, many people have never faced the hardships they are now. The 3 programs that you can apply for now that you may not be taking advantage of. Topping the news feed, the U.S. government has carried out a record number of executions this year, and it's more than all states that still do executions for the first time in history. This is according to a report by the Death Penalty Information Center. There have been 10 federal executions in 2020. States carried out 7 executions. The rules are changing for just how much water comes out of your shower. The Department of Energy just rolled back water flow restrictions on shower heads and other appliances. Environmental groups are calling on President-elect Biden to go back to the old regulations. China putting in new rules for which flights can come into their country. It's going to suspend inbound international flight routes for up to 2 weeks if 5 or more people on board test positive for COVID when a flight arrives. College enrollment is dropping sharply among high school seniors. A new report finds the number of students who immediately went on to college this year fell by nearly 22% on average. Breaking that down by area, underserved communities have been hit the hardest. Nearly a 30% drop for low-income high schools and a 33% high poverty high schools. Well, the National College Attainment Network funded this research, and they tell us that students lost access to support networks when schools went virtual. Then, many students in communities hit hardest by COVID didn't have a choice other than to get a job and support their families.
They get used to that. Their families get used to that. Their families need that from them. And it makes the idea of thinking about college later in life after high school graduation seem all the more impossible.
The group's biggest message is to stay engaged. It's not too late to apply for federal student aid like the Pell Grant or subsidized student loans. There's online resources through the U.S. Department of Education, and platforms like the Common App offer chat options to answer questions. Even just a couple of classes at a community college can help keep you on track. You can also reach out to institutions that you previously applied to but felt like you couldn't go. Talk to the financial aid office about how your circumstances have changed.
This is all about making it an open conversation and reaching out to those supports and telling them you'd like to enroll and asking them to help you make that happen and what kind of options you have now.
The data suggests that declining college enrollment will not only continue but possibly get worse next fall. This time of year, current seniors should be focusing on keeping grades up and writing essays for applications.
Well, earlier we were talking about the lack of Christmas lights that you're able to find at the stores. But as you look on the left side of your screen there, it looks like the crews there at Victory Field didn't have any problems finding lights. They've kind of outlined the baselines there with some Christmas lights. And of course, you can see lights at the zoo there as well, kind of adding to the festive feel that we've got out there with that new blanket of snow from earlier today. And we still have a few of those snow showers that are flying across, especially the eastern portion of the state. So limiting visibility there a little bit along I-70 between Richmond and Indianapolis, right on through the Greenfield area. A few more of those snow showers for you into Columbus as well, with temperatures that feel like they're in the lower 20s downtown. Feels like 23 in Columbus, and it feels like 24 in Lafayette. Actual temperatures right around that 30-degree mark there. Upper 20s for you in Kokomo and 33 in Shelbyville. Tonight we'll find our temperature dipping down to about 27, so we won't fall too far with the clouds around. Still some snow showers, could have some patchy freezing drizzle as well, so still could have some slick spots as you head out there in the morning tomorrow. Otherwise, does look like it will be a rather gray and cloudy day for us, and that keeps temperatures a little below average, only in the 30s for that afternoon high. Maybe a couple of flurries here as we go through the afternoon. isolated snow shower for your Thursday, but really not expecting any accumulation out of that. Check for the 7-day planning forecast, and temperatures are going to start to warm up a little bit here as we get into our Friday. We've got a high of 41 there, 42 on Saturday with a chance for some rain mainly, and then a little chance for some snow mixing in later in the day. And check that out, highs well into the 40s next week.
We're now less than 10 days away from Christmas, and if you've been procrastinating, you've only got a few more days to shop at Walmart. Now, the retailer announced its shipping deadlines to get deliveries in time for the holiday. For 2-day shipping, orders must be placed by the 19th. Important to note that's only 2 days from now. Now, if you want next day delivery, you need to order it by the 21st, and if you need in-store pickup, orders must be placed by December 23rd at 4 p.m. Now, Amazon also has its own cutoff days. You'll need to order by December 23rd if you want 1-day delivery, and Christmas Eve is the cutoff for same-day delivery. Scammers are using this peak delivery time, though, to steal your information. According to researchers at Checkpoint, hackers are impersonating companies like Amazon and FedEx. They're often sending emails that supposedly allow you to track your shipment to say there's an issue with your delivery. Now, make sure you never share any usernames or passwords. If you get an email like this, make sure the URL takes you to a real website. You could Google the site instead of clicking the URL and look for spelling errors in the email. Always a important clue there. Now, the United States Postal Service is overwhelmed right now. It's working to deliver an unprecedented number of packages. It has a limited number of employees right now due to COVID. The Postal Service is warning that customers may experience temporary delays. All right, let's check in on the news feed. The value of one Bitcoin has hit a new record. It's $20,000. It's been climbing for 2 months. That could mean interest in using cryptocurrency is becoming more mainstream. A new report shows there was a weak start to the holiday shopping season. The Commerce Department finds retail sales fell for the second month in a row in November. The report adds to growing signs that the economy's recovery from the pandemic recession is slowing. Starbucks is putting an end to its buy one, get one happy hour promotion. The company says it's to cut down on the number of customers in stores as cases continue to rise. Tomorrow was supposed to be the next happy hour. Instead, loyalty program members, you will get more special offers. Millions of Americans have never been in such a dire financial situation. Because this is all so new for so many, some people are not aware of the government programs that are available. Alicia Nieves explains what's out there and why applying for them now might be key for you.
People around the country have been waiting at least 8 months for Congress to pass another stimulus package.
It seems like every time we get really, really close and then nothing transpires.
Elizabeth Pancotti is a policy advisor at Employ America.
There's like a sense of urgency within the halls of Congress, but that sense of urgency was there at the end of July when the $600 top-off expired.
Pancotti says those who have lost their job and can't afford to pay rent shouldn't wait to apply for help already available to them. They should consider 3 programs many don't know about, especially if they have never needed this kind of help before.
The first of those is SNAP, more commonly known as food stamps, and that can provide $200 to $600 typically dollars per week. The second program is TANF, or Temporary Assistance for Needy Families. Now, the problem with TANF is that it does have a work requirement. The third program is going to be on a state-by-state basis, and so some unemployment insurance offices have tried to extend benefits for longer or to top off benefits. For example, in the District of Columbia, they're planning to send checks to every PUA recipient.
It's important to note that SNAP benefits can only be used for food, and while TANF usually has a work requirement, most states are not enforcing that during this pandemic. Most importantly, note that it could take up to 30 days for someone to get enrolled in these programs, so apply now and apply even with the new stimulus package.
Even if Congress comes to an agreement this week, it is very likely that there will be a lag in getting those top-off payments. If there's a $300 or $400 top-off added to payments, it will be weeks before that starts showing up on checks. It'll be weeks before people who are kicked out of the system will be brought back in.
These 3 programs could get millions through the likely gap in their income. I'm Alicia Nieves reporting.
Alicia, thank you. Now, finally in our lineup, we know losing your smell is a symptom of COVID, and we will show you the Scratch and Sniff app that can tell you that you have the virus before you can get a regular test done. Honda is recalling more than 1 million cars. The company says it needs to repair drive shafts as well as window switches that can overheat, as well as a software issue. Recall affects Accords from 2018 to 2020, as well as Insights from 2019 and 2020. Now, those scratch and sniff stickers have gone really high tech and have become another way to test for coronavirus. Researchers at the University of Colorado and Yale have developed a You Smell It test. It works as an app. Essentially, users will use this high-tech scratch and sniff to detect whether they've lost their sense of smell.
And there's 5 windows, and they have different odorants on each of them. And basically, all you have to do is you take an app, which is with your phone, and you basically simply scan the card. It has a QR code, and it recognizes the unique combination of odorants. This is really important because we want the test to be different every time.
The user will choose the corresponding odors, and after they're done, the app will give them a score on how well they did or did not do. This test isn't meant to replace the PCR test or antibody tests that are approved by the FDA.
This would be a supplement so that we would be able to, if you failed a smell, then you would know to go in for an antigen or PCR test, but you're more likely to be positive on those tests. So it would actually be really, really helpful. Think of it as a pre-test.
Researchers behind the You Smell It test hope that it will help with the current testing shortage. Right now, they are seeking FDA approval for emergency use. If approved, they'll be making the tests at a larger scale. Getting hired in December with just a couple of weeks left. Job experts say it is possible.
Companies have had to shift and be extremely flexible due to the pandemic, and these positions have definitely become more in demand.
Tomorrow we'll have advice on finding a job before the new year and the positions recruiters say they're in a rush to fill before 2021.
Cloudy, few flurries and chilly tomorrow. Then that snow really begins to melt away as we head into the weekend with highs in the 40s. Thanks for joining us here at 5:30.